An 11-year-old girl in Oklahoma gave birth at home. Her family claimed that they had no idea she was pregnant, even blaming a 12-year-old boy. But when EMS got involved, the truth came out, which is the father of her baby, is her own stepdad. Welcome to tonight's Just in the Nick of Crime. Today, I'm breaking down exactly what happened, why this case is so disturbing if you can't tell already, the medical risks of a pregnancy at just 11 years old, and the bigger conversation about how abuse like this gets hidden in plain sight. Now, before I go further, I'd like you to do me a solid. If you're watching this on TikTok, please hit that follow button and tap that screen. The more likes you can tap, the more it helps push this video out. Insta and Facebook, please hit that follow as well. And for my YouTube crowd, a quick thank you for the massive growth over the last couple of days. I am so close to that 50,000 follower goal on YouTube. I think I'm like 1,100 away right now. So if you are new here and a new subscriber, welcome. And if you are here for the first time, please consider subscribing here as well. As I said, I'm on a journey to that 50,000 mark, and I am so close. Last housekeeping item I want to give you guys, because I would be remiss on this type of content on this video if I didn't put a trigger warning here. This content, what we're about to talk about, is extremely disturbing content. But based on the title and based on how I open this up, you probably already know that. Let's get into it. On August 16th in Muskogee, Oklahoma, an 11-year-old girl went into labor. She wasn't at a hospital. There were no doctors, nurses, or midwives either. She gave birth inside her home, a home that she shared with 5 other siblings, shared with her mom and her stepdad, a home that hadn't had running water in years, one that was described as living in filth and animal feces, which is hardly a clean environment for anyone, much less for someone giving birth. And the person who delivered that baby was the girl's own mother, Sherry Walker. Now, let me give you guys some pictures here if we're on here. There's the house, and there's our suspects, guys. Now, what we originally learned, or what we had originally been told, I should say, was that eventually an ambulance was called when this happened. And that's when people began to question what exactly was going on here. At first, the family gave an explanation that just didn't make sense. They claimed that they had no idea that this little 11-year-old girl was pregnant. Their excuse was that even though she was small and petite, despite all of that, and despite the fact that she is a child, somehow she carried a full-term, full-sized, 40-week baby without anybody noticing. That's the story. Do you guys believe that? Well, let me take it a step further. The grandmother even went as far as to blame a 12-year-old boy that she used to babysit, saying that the 2 children had just been exploring, that it was just kids being kids. And that's how this 11-year-old girl got pregnant, by a 12-year-old boy. That's a problem of itself, too. Different conversation. The issue with these stories is that authorities didn't believe them, as I'm sure you guys don't believe them, and as sure as I don't believe them. They didn't believe that on such a small child that you wouldn't notice a full-size pregnancy. The story of the 12-year-old boy also just didn't add up. And if you're like me, you're probably thinking the exact same thing. Well, we need a DNA test. Well, like I said, an ambulance was finally called. In fact, according to a source close to the family, it was EMTs that were the ones that cut this baby's cord. Anyway, she was taken to the hospital, and that's when doctors got involved. And then that's when authorities got involved. Because an 11-year-old girl giving birth, that raises some red flags, doesn't it? Then a DNA test was performed on the newborn, and the results came back. And as I'm sure you guys know, we don't need Maury Povich for this. And just watch how my jaw stays in place here. Because as it turns out, the father wasn't some neighborhood boy, wasn't some 12-year-old. The father was this guy next to me on the screen, Dustin Walker, the child's own stepdad. And I am sure none of y'all saw that coming. And that was sarcasm, by the way. And here's where it gets even darker, because here's something that you might not know. Sherry, the girl's mom, the one who delivered her daughter's baby, she is pregnant herself right now. She is 35 weeks, maybe closer to 36 at this point, along, expecting what is going to be her 7th child number 7. So that means her and her 11-year-old daughter were pregnant at the same time by the same man. It is effing disgusting. But now here's another piece of the puzzle. This child, this little girl, she hasn't been to school in about a year. And it's believed by authorities that she was pulled out of school and kept hidden throughout her pregnancy so that no one, no teachers, no mandated reporters specifically, could notice what was really going on. And in addition to that, In the last year, she also had not been to a doctor, not once. And what does that mean, women? No prenatal care, no checkups, nothing. And as someone whose wife has had two very complicated pregnancies and that has only resulted in one living child, I know how dangerous pregnancy can be. And that was in a healthy adult woman. Now, sources close to the family also revealed something else, something that's very concerning. All right. And hopefully, this isn't the worst case scenario, but likely it is. Sources close to the family revealed that there were two younger sisters in that home, which raises serious concerns that this abuse might not have just stopped with the one child. Because of these circumstances, and the fact that they're in jail, all of the children have since been removed from the home and split up into safer placements. Now, here's what I want to point out, and this is not something that we want to think about, but I think that it's important to talk about. And I'm just going to tell you guys, I'm going to say it again too. I don't like covering these stories, and there's a reason that I do, and we'll get to that toward the end. I hate covering these stories. These stories are very disturbing. I don't sleep well after them, but they're important to talk about. We know logically that the first time he abused her wasn't the first wasn't the first time she got pregnant. Like, that wasn't the first time. We know that. Logic tells us that. Statistics tell us that. History tells us that, right? So the odds of the other younger girls getting abused too is probably pretty high. And that's unfortunate, right? But all of this, what I just shared with you, is the backdrop of the case. And it's horrifying. An 11-year-old girl forced into motherhood, a mother who enabled it, and a stepfather who fathered his own stepdaughter's child. And now that you understand the background, let's talk about what this really means. Because when we say an 11-year-old gave birth, it's not just shocking, it is life-threatening. Because at 11 years old, a child's body is not ready for pregnancy. The pelvis is still underdeveloped, which means there's a very real risk of obstructed labor, which is where the baby, for guys who are listening to this, where baby cannot pass through the birth canal. That kind of complication is not only dangerous for the baby, it can be fatal for the mother. And especially in a state like Oklahoma, especially in the US, where we have the worst fetal mortality or maternal mortality rate of any first world nation. Oklahoma is toward the bottom of that list. All right? It can be fatal. Girls this young are also at much higher risk for preeclampsia, which is a condition that causes seizures, organ failure, even death. They're more likely to suffer severe bleeding during childbirth, anemia, stunted growth, because their own bodies are still developing while a pregnancy is demanding the nutrients that their body should be using to grow. And the risks don't end there. Infants born to mothers under 15 are far more likely to be premature, to have low birth weight, or to face long-term health complications. And remember, in this case, y'all, there was zilch, no prenatal care, no doctor's visits, no ultrasounds, no screenings, nothing to protect either the child mother or her baby. And then there's the emotional side to it. At 11 years old, a child is still in elementary school, or at least she was supposed to be till they took her out. This is where it gets really sad and gets really upsetting, because kids that age, they're supposed to be learning their multiplication tables. They're still having recess at school. They're playing outside with friends. They're not supposed to be pregnant. They're not prepared mentally, emotionally, or physically to handle pregnancy, labor, and motherhood. And that's what happened to this little girl. And let's call it what it is. It is abuse, but it is rape. It is rape. And I don't care if the TikTok, Insta, Facebook gods get mad at me for saying that. And I don't care if YouTube demonetizes this video because I said it. I don't care, because that's what it is, and it needs to be said that way. We're not going to sugarcoat what this horrific ordeal was. And now, because of this, she's left to deal with not only the trauma of her being assaulted and raped by her own stepfather, but also the trauma of carrying and delivering his baby. That combination is devastating. Survivors in situations like this face lifelong scars, PTSD, depression, anxiety, and often a very real struggle to trust anyone ever again. And without real intervention, without therapy, without support, that trauma can echo through generations. And the thing is, and you all know this isn't just about one horrific case. And this case is absolutely horrific, right? It's about the broader reality that child pregnancy is dangerous, traumatic, and unacceptable, and yet it still happens. Now, I'm not a psychic. But I bet a lot of you guys are asking the same question, which is how did this go on for so long without anyone stepping in? How does an 11-year-old end up pregnant and hidden and no one outside the home realize what was happening? Well, let me give you another heartbreaking piece of the puzzle. Neighbors say that they called Child Protective Services. They asked for welfare checks. They did this multiple times over the past 2 or 3 years. What do you think happened? There was never, not once, any meaningful intervention. None of it ever occurred. They never showed up. One neighbor said the family had no running water and that the children were living among animals without proper care. And despite those distress symbols, the signals, the things that they were told to CPS, because the CPS was told all of this, the oversight system failed. Big surprise, right? Community voices raised the alarm, told them there are 6 kids in this house and something's not right. And nobody came. It is a massive failure. We all know, like we talk about it. When you cover true crime, when you cover current events, when you're in this world, you see how often CPS fails. It should stand for can't protect shit because they never do. In fact, typically more harm comes from them than good. And they always drop the ball. Right? Nobody came. Nobody came. Then there's the deliberate isolation of this child. Like I said, she'd been pulled out of school, possibly homeschooled, but I doubt it, which removed any eyes from teachers, counselors, or nurses who might have noticed the growing pregnancy or behavioral changes. Because guess what? When you have a young child being abused like that, being assaulted like that, their behavior changes. Which is why you will never, on a completely different case, you will never convince me that Madeline Soto's mom, Jen Soto, didn't know what was going on. You will never convince me that because kids change, their attitude changes, their mentality changes. They become depressed when this stuff happens to them because they don't want it. But when they have nothing, when they are where they are and they're the people who are supposed to protect them don't, and they're the abusers, they have to take it. They have no choice. And in a case where CPS could have intervened, they didn't. Right? And then you have medical neglect because that's another piece. She hadn't seen a doctor in more than a year. She received absolutely zero prenatal care. And you combine that with a family insisting that they had no idea she was pregnant. No one knew or saw a thing. Right? This is so much more than just one family's failure. It is a breakdown at every level. Neighbors tried to help. Schools were bypassed. Medical access was blocked. And the claims of ignorance went unchallenged. It's a reminder that abuse thrives in secrecy. It thrives in isolation, and it thrives in bureaucratic inaction. What happened in this Oklahoma home isn't just a family tragedy. It is a failure that should force all of us to ask hard questions. This girl wasn't just raped and assaulted. She was hidden. She was pulled out of school so nobody would notice. She never saw a doctor, so nobody in the medical system could ever intervene. And even though neighbors raised red flags and called CPS multiple times over the year, nothing meaningful was done to protect her. That is a system failure. And it's not unique to Oklahoma, although Oklahoma is terrible about it. Across the country, children fall through the cracks when systems that are supposed to be designed to protect them are overwhelmed, underfunded, or simply just don't take reports seriously enough. As I said, abuse thrives in silence and secrecy. And when warning signs are ignored, the most vulnerable pay the price. We also need to talk about child pregnancy in a broader sense, because this isn't just a young mom story. This is a child whose body wasn't ready, whose mind wasn't ready, who couldn't possibly consent. And because why? Let's say it together. Because children can never consent, ever. And regardless of this, according to global health data, tens of thousands of children under the age of 15 give birth every year. And you want to know something? In nearly every single one of those cases, that pregnancy is the result of abuse. In nearly every single one of those cases, it is an adult male with access to this child. In the vast majority of these cases, it is a grown-ass adult. Here in the US, these stories rarely make big headlines unless something catastrophic happens or it is so shocking or jaw-dropping like this one. But they're real and they're happening. In fact, I'm quite sure, I don't know, what do I have? I have 141 people in here, 728 on TikTok, and how many? 157 on Instagram. It's a rhetorical thing. You guys don't have to say it, but I would imagine that there are a lot of women in here who, when they were girls, went through something similar and they never spoke up even to this day. Or if they did, they were told to stop lying or it was swept under the rug. I would guarantee it. And that's why stories like this matter, right? And I shouldn't, you know what? Let me stop myself here for a minute, because I shouldn't say just girls. I shouldn't say that, because it happens to boys too. It's more prevalent amongst girls, but it happens to boys too, right? And they don't speak up for a whole myriad of different reasons. So let me correct myself on that. My apologies. But all of this is what I'm saying. This is why stories like this matter, right? They are very hard to hear. They're hard to talk about, but they can't be ignored, because abuse doesn't stop unless someone speaks up. It takes a teacher noticing a sudden change or a bruise. It takes a neighbor making a call. And it takes a system that actually acts on these warnings, unlike Oklahoma CPS. And if you ever suspect a child, and I'm just going to put this out here, guys, because this is important. If you ever suspect a child being abused, don't wait. Don't second guess yourself. Just call it in. Just call it in. The Child Help National Abuse Hotline is available 24/7. And the phone number, I should have thrown it up on the screen and I didn't, but I'll say it twice. 800-422-4453. Again, 800-422-4453. One phone call could be the difference between a child staying trapped or finally being rescued. Because at the end of the day, protecting children has to be more important than protecting reputations, avoiding discomfort, or keeping family secrets. This little girl deserved safety. This little girl deserved love. And instead, she was silenced. She was abused. She was kept quiet, which I guess is the same as silence, until the truth finally came out in the worst possible way. What she went through is horrific. And the fact that she's alive, she's just lucky. Again, there was no medical care there. Just a mom who's had 5 other kids, or 6 other kids, I guess, about to have number 7, delivering a baby. That's what you had. In a house with no running water and feces all around you. Right? The worst possible way. And I want to say this. I said this before. Guys, I hate covering stories like this. I hate talking about them. For those of y'all who don't know, for those of y'all who are new here, I'm a dad. I have a 6-year-old daughter who almost didn't make it because of the situation. She was born at 29 weeks and 3 days. But thanks to a great medical team, she did. And she's perfect. And she's incredible. And she impresses me every single day. And she is my favorite person to exist. And as a dad, these stories make me want to cry. And admittedly, some actually do. That's my wife. I get very upset about these. I try not to show that on here, but I do. But I say all that to say this. If an 11-year-old girl in Oklahoma can fall through the cracks this badly, imagine how many other kids are still out there right now, right this second, voiceless, invisible, and waiting for somebody to notice. And that's why I do this. I have large platforms. Across all of them, it's about 2.4 million. It would be irresponsible to not use them to be the person who notices or be the person who speaks up, because silence protects abusers, not children. Now, if you're watching this and you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button, follow button, along on TikTok, and following along on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, wherever. This isn't all I cover, but I do cover stories like this because they can't be ignored. So I'm going to encourage people to share this video, because it's on YouTube. You can go back and see it. It's on Facebook as well. Share this video. Drop your thoughts below so people can see it and what you think, and be mad, be upset, because this is what makes change happen. And think about this. A bunch of boomers getting mad at the Cracker Barrel logo got them to keep the Cracker Barrel logo the same. And I realize this is a completely different playing field, but my point is that there is power in numbers, right? There's power in loud voices, right? There are. So share this video, drop your thoughts below, and together, let's make sure this little girl's story doesn't disappear into silence. Thank you guys for listening to this. I know it's not easy, and I'll see you guys next time.